Manx Radio Sport.
Well, Pastor my good evening, sports fans. Rhian Evans here with you. It's been a while, hasn't it? But it is really good to be back in your company. Thanks very much for having me tonight, my friend. Well, January is upon us, a time of post-Christmas blues, feeling sluggish from the plus 700 pigs in blankets and 17 pints of sherry both you and I have consumed over the festive season. Let's not lie about it. And a time of feeling bitterly disappointed in ourselves following an immediate failure of our New Year's resolution to start exercising immediately. So what better way to make ourselves feel a little bit better than by listening about all those annoying sporty people who don't go for second helpings of Christmas pudding and get up to run a marathon before opening presents. Welcome back to Saturday Sport. Starting as usual with all your results from today, I only have football and rugby for you as hockey and netball don't start until next week. Lazy, I know. So starting today with the ECAP FA Cup prelim round, the Ramsey and Corinthians game that was postponed. Onken 4, Foxdale 1, Moran 1, St Mary's 0, Michael 0, Ayr 4, Ramsey Youth Centre 2, Douglas Royal 4, Douglas High School Old Boys 5, Castletown 2, Douglas Athletic 0, Braddon 8, Union Mills 5, Douglas and District 6. And in the Canada Life Men's Premier League, Laxey 0, Peel 4. And in Combi 1, the Ayr and Russian game and St John's game versus Moran. Those two were both postponed due to the weather, as was the Douglas and District versus Braddon game in Combi 2, but also in Combi 2, Colby won their game against Michael 4-1, Pulrose 3, Maloo 7, and the Foxdale versus Jims game that was also postponed. And looking at the rugby results, in the Regional 2 Northwest Division, Douglas 27-19 Wimslow, and in the Counties 3 ADM Lancs and Cheshire League, Old Bedians 54-16 Vagabonds, and in the Ravenscroft Manx Shield, Western Vikings 35, Ramsey Blues 55, and Ramsey Reds 43, Nomads Whites 12. So let's come all the way back to football now. We've got Tony Mepham in the studio. Happy New Year, Tony.
Happy New Year to you, Rhea. I haven't seen you for a while. Looking well, and nice to have you back in the team. Yeah, I bet you have. You've been a netball star, haven't you? From what I've seen and heard.
Very generous term, but yes, thank you.
Well done, and congratulations too on everything you've achieved.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Good stuff.
So, should we just dive straight in with today's results?
Definitely, because we've got the ECAP FA Cup, and certainly today, the preliminary round, there was some interesting fixtures in there. Let's rattle through the Ramsey against Corinthians game. That was postponed. Ramsey looked at the pitch, seen the photographs, just no chance you could have played on there. And that's been the story for 2 or 3 other games as well. So that one was postponed. We'll have a look at the calendar and see when we can slot it in. But Onken against Foxdale. Onken in the Premier League now, Foxdale in Div 2. And just thought at this one that Onken would win it, and they've done it quite convincingly too, because they had a great performance in the first half. Leo Fox with the second goal, I think it was. James Lease got one, Aaron Christian and Paul Whitley for Onken. We haven't got Foxdale's goal scorer through, so if you could please text us through 166177. But a note on this one is Nathan Cool, who refereed the game. Absolutely superb, so well done to Nathan and his officials alongside him as well, his linesman. And Onken went down to 10 players. Red card was dished out, no arguments from them. The players have got to learn not to pass comments to the referee, and Onken go through into the hat with that good 4-1 win.
Moving on to Moran St Mary's. Moran 1, St Mary's 0. Yeah,
that was the game I watched, and well done to everyone involved in this one, because originally it was to be played at Moran playing fields, but that pitch was wet, so they worked together, got it on at the bowl. Moran are paying for it, which is well committed by them, which is really good to see. And just the way it went in the first quarter of an hour, St Mary's looked pretty good, but then Moran got back into the game, and then Moran were awarded a penalty. Was it a penalty? It's one of them. I missed a little bit of it, so I couldn't tell 100%, but Matthew Macquarie it was who stepped up to take it. It was a great penalty, but what an absolute brilliant save by the goalkeeper, and 0-0 it stayed. But then about 10 minutes later they got the goal, because it was a ball had hit the bar, and then it was coming back out. Maggie Collister was there to finish it off, and 1-0 it was to Moran, and 1-0 it finished up. St Mary's had chances, Moran had chances as well. I thought Moran looked the better of the two teams. You know, I really did, because I just thought the players that St Mary's have got there should have done better. Mm-hmm. You know, when you're looking at goal scorers like Owen Canepa, Jamie Skillen, Joe Berquist had a lot of good chances, a lot of good runs, but couldn't get it past the goalkeeper. But to me, the man of the match, I think he pulled off two absolute great saves, was St Mary's goalkeeper, because one in the second half late on, super save by him, and obviously the penalty save as well. So that's where my award went for this one.
Excellent. I hope there's an actual award to dish out.
There'll be one. So, well, there is actually, because there's a player of the round, and well done to ECAP as well to supply the champagne and the trophy as well. And the panel have been out there today. It's all done properly.
Very nice.
And we'll find out on Monday who's won it. It's good.
Excellent. Moving on to Michael versus Ayr. Michael 0, Ayr 4.
Yeah, a comfortable victory for Ayr in the end. And when you look at the league table, Michael are doing really well in Div 2, but you're coming against the league champions. You're coming against the FA Cup holders, so it was always going to be tough for them. And I've got three of the goal scorers, and they scored the first three. Jamie Callister with one, Nicky Hurt got one, and John Shields as well. Not too sure who got the other one, but comfortable result in the end for Ayr United.
And then we have Ramsey Youth Centre 2, Douglas Royal 4. Yeah,
Douglas Royal will be happy with this, scoring 4 goals, getting a game under their belt. And Andy Asbridge got a brace, Simon Dooley got 2 as well, and Martin Murphy got a couple of goals for Ramsey Youth Centre. So Ramsey Youth Centre have seen what they've got to do to, sort of improve against a Premiership side, and Douglas Royal will be just happy to get a one under the belts and move on to the league game next week.
Then we have Douglas High School Old Boys 5, Castletown 2.
Yeah, this is a bit of a shock, to be honest with you, because I expected this one. It's hard to predict, but I thought this will be tight full time, maybe go to extra time and then into penalties. But Old Boys were absolutely flying. I think they were 4-0 up at half time. I think Danny Gellan got one, Dean Stockdale, Martin King and Johnny Gartland. But then Dean France added the 5th one in the second half. Nathan Cardy got one for Castletown, and Tom Moore got a consolation goal. But for a team that really fancied the chances of getting into the Premier League against a team that, I have to be honest, is struggling in the Premier League, and Old Boys, great result for Old Boys, and just gives Castletown an idea of how sort of difficult it's going to be to play in that Premier League if they do get promoted this year.
Just had a message.
Yep.
Thank you very much, 980, for taking the time to text in, saying Callum Wade for Foxdale versus Onken. Most of Foxdale can be playing today, as a lot of, or maybe weren't playing, as a lot of the lads away or injured.
Yeah, there was a lot of first team players missing, and combination players were brought in, and by all accounts did quite well.
Excellent. Moving on now, it was a bit of a tough start to the year for Braddon, it seems. For Douglas Athletic. They scored 0, Braddon won 8.
Yeah, I expected Braddon to win this one. They're going well in Div 2, and Douglas Athletic struggling a little bit. They were 3-0 down at half time, Douglas Athletic, and in the second half, Braddon obviously got another 5. Well, Callum Holdham got one from the penalty spot. Daniel Kinray got a goal as well, and then there was an own goal, so that was 3-0 at half time. And then in the second half, Joey Morland got his name on the score sheet. Joe Burrows got a couple of goals, Jasper Duggan, and another own goal. So Douglas Athletic didn't really help themselves, did they?
That is true.
But a comfortable result for Braddon, and they go into the draw later on.
And then arguably the match of the day, Union Mills 5, Douglas and District 6.
Yeah, myself and Paul Moran were having a little bit of a debate on this one at lunchtime, and he said, is this going to be a shocker? And I said, well, D&D have been known to throw it in now and then against one of the top sides, and certainly today it was absolutely flying. And I've got a little bit of a match report, and they've gone to the trouble of it, so I think it's right that we sort of mention
Reward
it. So
the effort.
It was preliminary round, Union Mills 3, D&D 3. This was after extra time, I think it was. It was 2-2 on full time, 1-1 at half time. Danny Shuttleworth got one of the goals for D&D. Sam Tipper got the other one. That was the second one to make it 2-2. And then it went into penalties, which D&D won 6-5. Now, it's not very often you see this, and well done, Dave, for putting this in format, but Steve Mulhern scored, Sam Tipper scored, Luke Callister scored, Daniel Stewart-Clegg got a goal, Ben Hall got the penalty as well, and Mark Quirk got the last one. So by the look of it, with it being 5-6, it went to sudden death, and it just says, great win against the third team in the Premier League. We went 1-0 down, then Shuttleworth equalised. Tipper scored a free kick to put it 2-1 up. They equalised full time. Danny put us 3-2 up in extra time. They equalised again in the first half of extra time. All 10 penalties scored. Then they missed a sudden death. Quirky scored, buzzing. We had no captain, Lewis Qualcho, Kai Stevenson, William Gavin or Dan Robinson, all regular starters. And the goal scorers for Union Mills, I'll just see if we've got them through. We haven't, so if you could please text us through 166 177.
Moving on to the Canada Life Men's Premier League, Laxey 0, Peel 4.
And comfortable, I've got a report on this one as well, so let's get this one. A good competitive match with Lewis Moran playing in some excellent through balls for Peel. Both sides competing well throughout. Bizarre first half, and it is bizarre. Rhys Oates had 4 penalties to take, 4 different penalties. His first one, after 2 minutes, missed. So then it's amazing how someone can have the nerve to step up then and have another penalty after that. But then he scored his second penalty, his third penalty and his fourth penalty to give Peel a lead at half-time.
That is bizarre.
3-0. So the bizarre first half saw Rhys miss the penalty, and then 2 minutes after 2 minutes, Andrew Crennel back for the first appearance of the season for the last 15 minutes, which was great to see. Great player, whilst another recent injured absentee, Joe Quayle, who was in America, now back on the island, a low cross from the left byline with 2 minutes remaining, scored. Only 2 known, this is a stato here, only 2 known previous scorers of a hat-trick of penalties for Peel have been Nick Hurt at Barclays Division 2 in 1996, and that was the year, if I remember rightly, that they won promotion back into the Premier League because they'd been relegated the season before. And Gordon Rice, I remember Gordon Rice, in the Junior Cup semi-final in 1992, home against Douglas High School Old Boys. So, you know, terrific stat there and a great result for Peel. And they go top of the table now, well and truly clear. They played 12 on 31. The next team behind them is Corinthians, played 9 for 23.
Excellent. Some excellent trivia there. Hopefully people can use that at some sort of local pub quiz.
Yeah.
Moving on to Combi 1, we had how many? Well, both the games were postponed. So that was Ayr versus Russian and St John's versus Moran. I'm assuming we don't have any inkling on when those will be rescheduled.
No, that'll we get them in as quick as we can, but we're back to scheduled fixtures next week. But we've got this Ramsey Corinthians game we need to get out of the way, but not necessarily play that next week. We'll just see where we can damage limitation and not upset too many clubs.
And then, so looking at Combi 2, there are another few postponed games: the Braddon and Douglas and District game and Foxdale versus Jims. Those were both postponed. But then we did have Colby 4 and Michael 1.
Yeah, and it was a good battle, this one, because Colby took the lead 1-0, and 1-0 it was at half-time. The Michael scorer was Jacob Landon with a penalty, but the Colby scorers was an own goal, Jack Fordham. He got a couple, well done, Jack. And Jack and Ladd got the other goal, so terrific result that for Colby.
Excellent. And then finally, Pulrose 3, Maloo 7.
Yeah, and half-time score was Maloo 3-1 up. And if I remember rightly, I've done my sums before. I think this now moves Maloo into second place in the league, just behind, yes they are, just behind Ramsey Youth Centre. And the goal scorers today for Pulrose, JP Joyce, he got all 3 goals for Pulrose. Maloo, we haven't got their goal scorers, so if you could text us through, please.
I've got a nice message from 333. Thank you very much for taking the time to message in, saying a cracking shift from Maloo lads despite missing a couple of players. A superb hat-trick from Dean Kinley was joined on the score sheet by Danny Bailey, Mark Hargreaves, Kieran Krippner and 16-year-old Brandon Krippner. Also, a special mention to our ladies who won 2-0 in the Floodlit Cup against noisy neighbours Castletown last night. Well done to Liv Marshall and Skywin Austin for their first goals for Maloo. We're going in the right direction. What a nice message.
Yeah, terrific. And, you know, the story behind Maloo's women's team really is a lot of them are hockey players, and they just decided, let's go and have a little bash and play football, and they really enjoy it themselves. Castletown, you know, struggled. Castletown only had 8 players last night, so let's give them credit. You know, to only lose 2-0 is, you know, a good performance by them. But there's some really good players there, and they're naturally fit because they play hockey. Yeah. And it's just learning, you know, the football side of it.
Yeah,
and
the skills.
I think in the next year, 2 years, coached properly, I think Maloo could do really well.
Hopefully, yeah, I hope so.
It's good.
And we've got fixtures on tomorrow in the Canada Life Women's Floodlit Cup. We've got Peel versus Corinthians and Oncombe versus Douglas Royal. And then we've also got 2 games in the Masters Douglas Royal versus Governors Athletic, and Peel versus Ayr, if you would like to take it away on those.
I'll go through them, and you're going to get in touch with London so we can do the cup draw. But tomorrow, the two games at the Bowl for the Canada Life Women's Floodlit Cup. Big one is Peel against Corinthians. It's always the bragging rights, and I'll be interested to see how this one goes. You know, Corinthians at the moment are probably just a little bit ahead of Peel, but Peel have got the players there. They've got some class. Ellie Gorn there, still as good as ever. So I'm just going to edge that one towards Corinthians. Douglas Royal against Onken. This is a tough one because Onken have got one or two new players, and one of my old friends, Johnny Palmer's daughter, plays, I think, her first senior women's football game. So it's always special. Ruby's a good little player.
Oh, fantastic.
She's better than her dad, so that just shows you how good she's going to be. So, yeah, it's great to see that. And Douglas Royal, if they've got their full-strength team out, they should be able to take the points away from Onken. But in the Masters football, these games are being played on grass. Douglas Royal against Governors Athletic. Douglas Royal have got a strong team, so I would expect Douglas Royal to win that. And it's going to be difficult to predict Peel against Ayr, because Ayr, to me, are going to be the champions-elect. I think they've got some really good players in there. The problem is they've got some first-team players which can count them out if they don't meet the criteria to play that day. But I've got a funny feeling tomorrow Ayr are looking quite strong, and I'll go for Ayr to beat Peel. So, yeah, 4 cracking games tomorrow.
Excellent. Well, now I have London live on the phone. Good evening, London, also known as Dan. How are you?
Hi, guys. Yeah, not too bad. How are you doing?
Good to have you here. Tony Meffam's here as well.
Hiya, Dan. Welcome.
Hi, Tony. How you doing?
Let's talk about the Arsenal first. How are they doing?
Oh, let's. Well, I mean, they're doing fantastically well. Bit of a test earlier on in the week against Newcastle, which I can't really say that we underperformed, but they stifled us pretty well. I mean, a point against those guys at the moment, they're probably the form team of the league. Isn't to be sniffed at, but I was a bit disappointed that we weren't given at least one penalty out of the 2 that were very contentious. But that's football for you. I can't really remember a time when VAR has done us too many favours so far this season. But hopefully our time will come.
No, exactly. And I was just looking back at sort of the previous results, and also Michael Arteta. How good is he? Because I was one of those that stay with him, give him an opportunity. Yeah. And he's just transformed the club, because let's face it, look where we were this time last year. We weren't doing very well, and this year we're going quite well.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many Arsenal fans, and I must admit, I was leaning towards being one of them, where we were certainly bottom half and probably bottom third of the league at the time, and he's in the job for a good few months. And I think it's really sort of brought it home how important it is that a manager builds his own team and plays the style of football that he wants to play. Whereas when you inherit a team and you try and play that sort of football, it doesn't often work, because obviously he's not got the players that he needs. So now that we've given him a bit of time to get bedded in, I'm so pleased that...
Oh, maybe he's just building suspense. Oh no, we're back.
Go ahead, Dan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no problem.
Great stuff. So, right, are we ready for the draw?
Yeah, we are, but just want to give you a little bit of trivia, because it'll be something that Manx people may know or might not know. When Arsenal played against Brighton, Alex Harrison, who is one of the top footballers on the Isle of Man, and his dad, Frank Harrison, were there watching the game. And they had a Manx flag up because, I don't know if you know it, but Kieran Tierney was born in the Isle of Man.
I did know that, yeah.
Yeah, and Kieran Tierney went over to Frank and Alex and actually gave him his number 3 shirt, so they've got his shirt now. And
really?
I'm going to try and persuade Alex to see if he'll sell it to me, because I collect a little bit of Arsenal memorabilia. I know what the answer's going to be is no, but what a coup that is. I was talking to him today and he's buzzing with it. Brilliant.
Oh, I bet he is. Yeah, Christ alive. It would be a great little collector's item in years to come, especially if they go on to win the league.
Definitely. I've got me Ian Wright, me Tony Adam ones. I'll stick with that. Right, we've got 16 balls in the bag, hopefully.
I have indeed, yeah.
Right, let's get everyone out of their misery and let's get the first round of the ECAP FA Cup draw done. And these fixtures are to be played, I think it's the first week in February.
Okay, fantastic. So first one out is number 15.
Number 15 is St George's.
Against number 8.
Number 8 is Jim's.
And then we've got number 9.
Number 9 is Laxey.
And that's against number 10.
Number 10 is Marown.
We've then got number 3.
Number 3 is a home tie for Colby.
And that's against number 7.
Number 7 is Governors Athletic.
Next up is number 5.
Number 5, great win today, Douglas High School Old Boys.
And then I've got them against number 12.
Number 12 is Peel.
And next up, number 1.
Number 1 is the Holders, Ayr United.
And they're up against number 14.
Number 14, oh, that's a beauty, Russian.
It's a good game. Next up, number 13.
Number 13 is Ramsey or Corinthians.
And that's up against number 2.
Number 2 is Braddon.
And then I think the final one, no, tell a lie, there's a couple more after that.
Yep.
Number 16.
Number 16 is St John's.
And they're up against number 11.
Number 11 is Onken.
And then finally, I've got number 4.
Number 4 is the Giant Killers today, Douglas and District.
And they're up against number 6.
And number 6 is Douglas Royal. I'll go through that draw. So the first one out of the hat was St George's will have a home tie against Jim's. Second one is Laxey against Marown. Colby will play Governors Athletic. Douglas High School Old Boys will have a home game against Peel. Ayr will play Russian. Ramsey or Corinthians will play Braddon. St John's against Onken. And the final game out of the draw is Douglas and District against Douglas Royal. Thank you so much, Dan. And we'll see how we get on Monday. Prediction against Oxford? I think
no prediction.
Dan's gone. No prediction. He bottled that one.
Can't handle the pressure. Well, Dan, if you're still there, thank you very much for joining us. Dan Collier there from all the way.
Thanks, guys.
Oh,
Take
no.
care.
Oh, he's back.
There.
Happy New Year, Dan. Have a good one.
All the best, mate.
Okay. Predictions from those games?
Ooh, I knew you were going to do that. St George's against Jim's. I'll go for St George's to win. Laxey against Marown. I thought Laxey would have been a bit closer to Peel today, but Marown played quite well, and if they get a couple of games going in, because they've been missing a lot of fixtures, then they might be able to do it, but I'll just edge it towards Laxey. Colby against Governors, I'll go for Colby to win that. Old Boys against Peel. Peel are flying, so I'll go for Peel. Ayr against Russian. Good battle. It just depends what players Russian have got available, but I'll just edge it towards Ayr. Ramsey against Corinthians first, and then against Braddon. I'm going to go for Corinthians to beat Ramsey, and then I'll go for Corinthians to beat Braddon. St John's against Onken, I'll go for St John's to win, as long as Dean Lees and Callum Taggart are back from injury. And Douglas and District against Douglas Royal. After today, I should be predicting Douglas and District, but I'm going to go for Michael Fitzmaurice's team, Douglas Royal, to beat D&D.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm just about to talk to Rob Pritchard ahead of the FC Isle of Man game, so would you like to stick around?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Fab. Okay. How you doing, Robbie, there?
Very good evening, Rhian. Good evening to everyone from a blustery bowl here in Douglas. FC Isle of Man, after a stuttering start to 2023 with a home defeat to Burscough on Monday night, they'll be looking to make amends 5 days on from that loss against one of the informed sides in the NWCFL Premier Division, Kendal Town, this evening. FC Isle of Man, they ended 2022 brilliantly with a 1-0 win away at title-chasing Avro, but that 4-3 loss to relegation-threatened Burscough may have just changed some thoughts in the camp as to how big the challenge is going on for the rest of the season. And one of those tricky tests is this evening against a Kendal Town team that have won 4 of their last 6 in all competitions and have lost just once in their last 9. Their recent form has been more akin to those up towards the top of the table, so make no mistake, FC Isle of Man have a big task on their hands this evening. We do have the starting 11s in for both sides, so we'll bring you those now. So starting with the home side, FC Isle of Man. In goal, number 1, James Rice. Number 2, Morgan Naylor. Number 3, Carl Clark. Number 4, Jack McVeigh. Number 5, Alex Maitland. Number 6, Jamie Corlett. Number 7, and the captain, Steve Whitley. Number 8, Kyle Watson. Number 9, Furo Davies. Number 10, Tom Creer. And number 11 is Jacob Crook, the substitutes for FC Isle of Man. Number 12, Frank Jones. Number 14, Sam Baines. Number 15, Charlie Higgins. Number 16, Ronan McDonnell. And number 17 is Tom Shimin. And for the visitors, Kendal Town, managed by Jimmy Marshall. In goal, number 1, 1, Daniel Rockier. And then it's number 2, Nathan Hankinson. Number 3, James Stanley. Number 4, Ryan Winder. Number 5, Matthew Flynn. Number 6, Daniel Hammond. Number 7, Brandon Croskell-Robinson. Number 8, and the captain, Robertson. Number 9, Thomas Killifin. Number 10, Sean Saylor. And number 11 is Stephen Yorson. The substitutes for Kendal Town. Number 12, Darren Nightingale. Number 14, Ben Thomas. Number 15, Joseph Dixon. Number 16, Thomas Gamble. And number 17 is Finlay Lynch. Your referee this evening is Jacob Widowson. And his assistant referees are John McCallum and Oliver Johnson. A couple of names that do stand out in that Kendal Town side are two of the men in the attacking line. Number 9, Tom Killifin, and number 11, Stephen Yorson, both ex-players of much higher levels. Steve Yorson, a former Morecambe man, and Thomas Killifin, the ex-Lancaster City man. Both of those have a frightening goal record so far this season. 31 goals between them so far this season, meaning FC Isle of Man could have a very busy night indeed in defence. Killifin in particular, 19 goals in 21 games. He may be the man to watch out for and keep quiet throughout this evening. So, FC Isle of Man looking for those first points of 2023, but they've got a big task on their hands tonight. If it's the FC Isle of Man that most people know they're capable of, we could be in for a very entertaining fixture indeed. Kick-off at 6 p.m, and FC Isle of Man versus Kendal Town live on Manx Radio, AM 1368 and digital from that time. Back to you for the meantime.
Just before you go, Rob, just listening to your starting 11 there, it sounds like he's going to play Jacob Crook on that left-hand side of midfield and play probably Carl Clark at left full-back. Have you heard anything?
Well, yeah, 3 changes to the side overall with Morgan Naylor, Kyle Watson and Tom Creer coming in. And Tom Creer, just to start with, we noticed, didn't we, Tony, in the last 20 minutes of that game when it really started to liven up after a pretty drab affair for 70 minutes. Tom Creer was at the heart of that. So maybe Paul Jones has taken a look and thought maybe he can be the bright spark to start things up front with the physical presence of Furo Davies. Jacob Crook, you would maybe hazard a guess on paper, looking at the number 11 shirt, he could be operating in that more advanced role down the left-hand side that, yes, we did see during last week as well. Also him as well the possibility that FC Isle of Man could be changing things to a back 5 today, possibly in anticipation of the attacking power that Kendal Town have got at the moment, but we don't have any confirmation as of yet.
I've got to ask you, what's the wind like down there? It was pretty choppy at lunchtime. What's it like now?
Still swirling around, I do have to say. I don't know if you can pick it up on this trusty Manx Radio microphone that I've got on right now, but the rain seems to have abated. The rain that caused havoc overnight, didn't it, to the Manx football fixtures. It's holding off for now. I just hope that's not the commentator's curse. So hopefully the rain stays off. It could be a bit blustery, so we could see those long balls that both teams will like to play along the pitch going straight back at the man who took it. So that could make for an entertaining affair in itself, or even make things a little scrappy at times, but we'll have to wait and see.
How's the crowd, Rob?
People slowly filtering in. One note, actually, we've been hearing reports of this in the last day or two, really, is the away support that's being anticipated tonight. We understand in the region of 70 to 80 Kendal Town fans could be making their way down to the ball, or have at least travelled to the island, which is another fantastic number. We have seen away attendances very much boosted since last season. It is a huge commitment to come here over a weekend, not just the time, but also the money as well. And at this time of year, when people's pockets might just be a little more shallow than usual after the festive season, great to see some away support here. So people filtering in nicely. Still plenty of time before kick-off as well for things to liven up. 28 minutes to be precise.
Excellent. Well, I'll leave you to your commentating extraordinairing, Rob Pritchard, and thank you very much for your time.
Not a problem.
Station, Manx Radio. Manx Radio Sport.
On to rugby now, and with all the details from the first competitive fixtures of the new year is Dave Christian. Faster my Dave, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, Rhian, not bad. And it was a chilly start, as you'd expect, to the rugby season in January. A bit breezy this afternoon, and certainly a reminder that hands get very cold very quickly, especially when holding a trusty Manx Radio microphone. Big start for Douglas is probably the headline news today. They'd had a little bit of a I'm not going to say a bad patch, but they had a slow start to the season is probably the easiest way to describe it. And they found themselves down at the bottom of Regional 2 Northwest. Just on the run-up to Christmas, they just started to get things coming together. They had a back-to-back weekends of wins, and with Wilmslow, today's opponents, below them in the table, they were quite optimistic about pulling off a win, and that's exactly what they did. 27-19 they won, and with only the third time this season they've scored 4 tries or more in a match, which gives them a try bonus point as well. So what we call in rugby circles a 5-pointer for Douglas this afternoon. They led 17-0 at half-time. There were tries from Simon Hoddenott and Sam McCord, both converted by Luke Highland, and Jack Shimon chipped in with a penalty as well. In the second half, Bradley Bomar went over for Douglas's third try, and at that stage, Wilmslow dug in their heels and fought back, and they set up a bit of a nail-biting finish for the Douglas faithful. The Douglas lead with just 10 minutes or so to go was 3 points, 22-19, and it was Brendan Kelly who popped up and made the game safe for Douglas with their fourth try, earning them a bonus point, and perhaps, and it's a little bit too early to tell just yet, but his score made Douglas 8 points clear of Wilmslow in the match, which means Wilmslow don't qualify for a losing bonus point, which you get if you finish within 7. And they're denying Wilmslow that bonus point is almost as good as getting a bonus point yourself, because if it does come down to a relegation dogfight at the tail end of the season, that losing bonus point there today that Wilmslow didn't pick up might have quite a lot hanging on it. So fantastic for Douglas, and they're going to kick onwards and upwards from here. They don't have, I think, a winnable game next week. They're against one of the top sides, but I think the week after that, the next home match is eminently winnable as well. So plenty to look forward to in January for Douglas. A great solid win for them today. The news, however, wasn't so good for Vagabonds. They were away at Old Bedians. Bedians pretty close to them in the table. And Vagabonds' start to the season was perhaps even slightly worse than Douglas's. Vagas just had one win in the 22 part of the season. And coming into 2023, away at Old Bedians. Bedians, they might have fancied their chances there. And indeed, they were in it even at half-time. Bedians raced into an early lead, 2 early tries. They were 12-0 up after 10 minutes. Vagabonds Pack then got to grips with the game, and Mark Oldfield scored a try. That was converted by Cameron Finley, and that got them onto the scoreboard. Vagas then turned the screw in the forwards. That yielded more penalties. Finley nailed another 2, and that saw Vagas actually leading 13-12 half-time. In the second half, Bedians grabbed another try, but Finley hit back with a penalty at the other end. And as the game moved into the final 20 minutes, it was still a 3-point match. Bedians ahead 19-16, and Vagabonds then capitulated in the final 20. A sticky pitch, and they were playing uphill as well. The Bedians pitch is on a slope, and Old Bedians ran away with the game. And from 19-16, it quickly deteriorated to what it finished at, which was 54-16. So disappointment for Vagabonds. Excuse me. They have a home match next week against Ellesmere Port. Now, Ramsey have already played at Ellesmere Port in the Cheshire Bowl and won at Ellesmere Port. So Vagabonds will fancy the Ellesmere Port a beatable at Balafletcher, and that's coming up next Saturday. Domestically, we had 2 games in the Ravenscroft Manx Shield. Ramsey won them both. Ramsey's Reds were at home against Southern Nomads Whites, and Ramsey's Blues away at Western Vikings. Wins for the Reds and the Blues will see them keep the top 2 spots in the Manx Shield standings. The Reds beat Nomads Whites 43-12 at the Murrock Park. That was the game we covered for Saturday Live. First half tries from Ben Hardman and Matthew Meakin, both converted by Brandon Atchison. That saw Ramsey 14-0 in front. George Collister hit back for Nomads, and Mark Young converted, and that meant that the Ramsey lead was just 14-7 at half-time. Tom Collister went over for Nomads early in the second half. That brought the game to 2 points at 14-12. But from that point onwards, scoring was all at the other end. Ramsey skipper Matthew Meakin added 2 more for his hat-trick. Brandon Atchison also ran in 3 of his own, and he finished the game with a 23-point personal haul, 3 tries and 4 conversions, so well done to him. At QE2, thankfully, it was a big scoring match, and Ramsey's Blues haven't given me their scorers information, so that makes the report a little bit shorter. 35-55 the final score down there. Ramsey Blues 55, Western Vikings 35. Reasonably close game as well. Lots of tries. They weren't quite playing with 15 aside. I think they were down to about 12 aside. But that frees up a lot of space on the pitch, means that the scores are a little bit bigger. Ramsey went into a 14-0 lead quite early on in the match. Vikings hit back with tries from Ryan Burke and Harry Goodwin, which Burke converted both. Ramsey, though, were a little bit too quick for the Vikings, and at half-time it was Ramsey leading 38-14. In the second half, Morgan Armstrong pattern pounced twice for Vikings. Josh Hockney got their fifth try, and Burke's boot was flawless. He kicked all three conversions in the second half. But Ramsey were too far ahead, really, for Vikings to make any inroads into the second half. Plus, 3 tries from Ramsey at the other end were enough for them to claim maximum points. So, all in all, a good day, some big scores, and some happy rugby players tonight.
Good, excellent. That's what we like to hear. And do you know when the women's team are going to be starting their New Year action?
Vagabonds ladies, I think, if I could just dive into the fixture list now, I have a feeling it was the third weekend in January, but I could be wrong there. Let me just drag up the ladies' fixture list. It's a home fixture, and I was intending to cover it from Saturday Live, and I think it's against the league leaders Southport, and it is... Where are we?
Sorry, I've completely put you on the spot here, Dave.
Yeah, it is the 14th of January. It's next Saturday.
Brilliant.
Vagabonds against Southport at Ballafletcher, and we'll be covering that one for Saturday Live.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dave Christian, and a very happy New Year.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio. Manx Radio Sport.
Looking to volleyball now, and there's positivity about the way the sport has grown on the Isle of Man over the past new year, which is excellent. Natalie Wood of Volleyball Isle of Man says Manx players and teams have made big strides over the last 12 months. Her and Rob caught up earlier this week.
So there's quite a few things that happened. Firstly, we participated again in Volleyball England's National Cup. Our men's team won their first ever game, and so did our ladies as well, actually. So in 2021, we didn't win any games, and we've already improved that record once. And then the ladies, we actually play again this weekend as well. So if anyone's keen to watch the live stream of that on Sunday, tune into Facebook. And then as well, we took part in the Lancashire League, which is a mixed league that took place in Garstang. And we actually came in second in that as well, so that was quite exciting.
Looking at the chance you've had to experience competition against UK teams, whether it's here on island or off island in most cases, just how valuable has that been to all the players and coaching staff in developing the game here to maybe up the game going into future games and tournaments?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been an incredible experience. Like I said, going from winning no games the previous year to winning 2 games this past year has been an awesome thing for both our men's and ladies. And then just taking part in the Lancashire League as well, has given, since that's mixed, it's given more people an opportunity who aren't necessarily on the men's and women's teams to play at a higher level across. And I think you can see it reflected in the level of the games happening in the league on island.
Looking into 2023 then, immediately of course the women will be in action this weekend in the National Shield up against York Falcons on Sunday. What are you looking forward to most about that game?
I think it's just going to be definitely a great competition. York's quite a strong team, so it's going to be a great chance to go out and try and test our ability and see how much we've improved since September when we started training again.
Natalie Wood there chatting to Rob Pritchard, and as Nat just said, the Isle of Man women's take on York Falcons away in the National Shield tomorrow at 2:00 in the afternoon. The game will be streamed live on the Isle of Man Volleyball's Facebook page, and if you check out this story on the Manx Radio Sports page, there should be a link to their Facebook page on this story. If there isn't now, then there will be within the next 45 minutes, because I will go and put one in the story. And finally, finishing off with a little bit of water sports, Isle of Man Paddle Surf has secured an important connection to help grow the sport locally. The organisation has been approved for affiliation with British Canoeing. Isle of Man Paddle Surf says this means they'll have a platform going forward to develop the sport. 2022 was a big year for the Isle of Man surf kayaking competitors as they took part in the World Surf Kayaking Championships in Cornwall. That was from the 29th of September until the 10th of October. And there are hopes the team can be back in action later on this year at the British Championships and Home Internationals in South Wales, which is very exciting. Separately, Isle of Man Paddle Surf recently held a local surf kayaking and wave ski competition for its members on Brewery Beach. I really struggle saying that word, I'm so sorry. From the 27th until the 29th of December. Richard Cragine Watson was a double winner, greedy some might say, taking the top spot in both the Open HP and Open IC categories. Meanwhile, in the wave ski exhibition contest, Daniel Shimon emerged victorious. Elsewhere, the mixed developers class was won by Nick Watt, with second place going to Jack Scarlett and a tie for third between Laura O'Reilly and Alex Kizik. So potentially a new sport to try if you've set a New Year's resolution to try a new sport. Any of those water sports sound really fun. And if you have a sport that you would like to promote on Manx Radio, do get in touch. Just message newsroom@manxradio.com. I know that there's so much going on. Pickleball, frisbee golf, to name but a few. So if you would like to promote your sport, do email newsroom@manxradio.com and we'll get you in for an interview. But that's all for today. Thank you very much for having me back. Sorry I was a bit rusty to start with. It's been an age, but as I said before, it's been really lovely having you along to keep me company this afternoon. And I guess all that's left to say is best of luck to those of you competing this weekend. Well done to those of you who already have competed. And happy sporting and a happy new year to all of you. Thanks for keeping me company and have a lovely night.